Come on, that was great.
Mahalo, mahalo, mahalo.
This is the perfect little like pick us up that we needed.
Oh yeah.
Okay, looks like we're recording. Looks like we're live on Facebook, and it looks like we have quorum for our March 8th Festival of Pacific Culture and Arts meeting. Really excited today. I'm trying to slow down intentionally because I went really, really fast last time. But the first order of agenda item that we have is our vehena to open our meeting today. It was arranged by Representative Richard Onishi, and today we're super lucky to have Kama Hopkins with us to open us with a pule for our meeting today. So the floor is yours, Kama.
Mahalo nui. Ke aloha nui ya oko e na alakai na komisina o kia papa alakai hoi. Unfortunately, Representative Onishi, Commissioner Onishi could not join us yet. Hopefully he will be here later on. But I have been asked to say a quick pule just to open our meeting today. No leila, e ho'omalu mai kako. Kia kua mana loa mahalo ko kalani. Mahalo nui ya oai kia kua. Mahalo ho ina po mai ka ia paulo au iha amia ia mako kia kua. Hui kala mai ina hewa nui, ina hewa riri ime na hewa ia kia kua. Ai ko mako ako ko ana mai ke ia kakahi ka ke ia lana ho i kia kua. Nau no e hopo mai ka i mai kia papa alakai. Mina mea apa o i kako o ania lako kia kua. Hiki kia mau kanaka ke holomua. Kuka ina mea kupono no ka holomua ano o kia aha nui. Kia hana nui a mako o iho i o FestPAC. Kia kua. Nau no e alaka i alako, a malam i alako, hiki alako ke ho'omau i ke anohana. Kuka ho'olo i na mea kupono no ka holomua pono ano kia hana nui kia kua. No ka mea o kia moana nui kia kua. Ale no ia he mea nane ho ka awale, he mea no ia i ho'ohui mai ia mako apau o iho i ka poe noho nei maki a moana nui o ka paki pika. I kia kua, i kia manawa nau no e malama mai ia mako apau, mana wahi apau I hele ai bena mea apau I hana I kia kua. Pahola mai ki aloha malu na mako. Heavenly Father, we thank thee for this beautiful day, for the many blessings that thou hast bestowed upon us. We ask thee to please forgive us for our shortcomings. And today, as we meet, please bless the commissioners and all those that support them, that they might be able to discuss things and make good decisions that will allow our Festival of Pacific and Culture Arts to move forward. We ask thee to please bless them and bless all of us, that we might be safe in all that we do and all the places that we go. Please bless us and give us love and compassion for one another. And we ask thee these things. Makainoa kaukeiki o Yesu Christo kamisia kahaku. Amen.
Mahalo e kama. Thank you
Mahalo.
for joining us. Feel free to stay as long as you can or want to, and if you got a ha'alele, no problem.
Yeah, ho'i ana I kahana. Mahalo nui. Ke aloha nui. Aloha.
E malama.
Ai.
Okay, thanks everyone. The next agenda item we have is public comments. So I'm gonna go ahead and open the floor up for public comments. If anyone has those, go ahead and unmute yourself and share those comments with us now. Going once, going twice. Hearing or seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 3. I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt the February 22nd meeting minutes that were distributed with the meeting packet last week.
So moved.
It's been moved by Commissioner McCumber. Do I have a second?
Second, Mapuana.
Seconded by Commissioner De Silva. So it's been moved and seconded to adopt the minutes of the February 22nd meeting. Any discussion, members? Any corrections? I believe we got pagination correct on this one this time.
I was channeling you, Kumu De Silva. Make sure I checked it twice.
Mahalo.
Thanks, Malia. Okay. If there's no further discussion, I'd like to take the vote to adopt the minutes. I'm going to do a roll call vote for commissioners present. I'm going to vote in the affirmative. Commissioner McCumber,
Aye, affirmative.
Commissioner Lum,
Aye.
Commissioner Salah,
Aye.
Commissioner De Silva.
Aye, for late.
Perfect. Mahalo. The minutes have been adopted unanimously. We're going to move into agenda item number 4, the festival program matrix. I believe everyone in the meeting packet that was distributed last week received the cover letter from Commissioner Bento with some of the description about what she put together, and then also attached the Excel sheet that helps us organize the matrix into those sort of categories by color. And then she also listed on that vertical axis the countries so that we could start to track participation once we go ahead and distribute those practices to and ask for an intent to participate. So I think we're getting close. Does anybody have any discussion items for what was shared in the meeting packet?
Not for me.
Okay. So one thing I'm still concerned about is the actual definition to the practice. It could be just me, and so I just want to open the floor to it. But my fear is when we say mixed media, and then we talk about, say, language or whatever the category is, I want to just be sure that we're being clear in what we're asking of the delegations. And so does anybody have any thoughts on how we can define those further to give a little bit more guidance to heads of delegation?
Specifically to mixed media or?
Sorry, that was just an example to any of them. I think with something like, say, traditional dance, for example, it's a little bit easier to wrap our heads around. Jam session is one that I'm a little bit curious about, right? Like kanikapila to us is understood, but I'm not sure if it'll be understood to the other delegations.
Yeah, and to me, that's right too, because it can be interpreted differently. And in one sense, ho'okanipila can just be playing in rounds, and that there's a set order to who's next, and you just, when it's your turn, you take the lead, or that there is an assigned group or persons who are lead, and everyone just plays and adds their own vocals or like that. So yeah, I don't know. I know you're asking for more clarification, but that one, yeah, I'm not too sure. Sorry. Anybody else want to jump in on the whole kanipila kumu?
Yeah. I'll just explain this. Jam session started in Palau, and the idea of the jam session was to have an area where the delegations could come together and do exactly what you're talking about, Monty. You know, one play, then the next play, and kind of communicating and exchanging through music. However, it's turned into a free-for-all. In Palau, it didn't really come off the way they had intended, and every festival since Palau, so that means the last 3 festivals, it's gotten more crazy and more crazy. So it's basically become just a stage and a microphone system, sound system, where the countries are assigned to times and they can do anything they want. And I'm hesitant to continue with the jam. They called it a jam house in the beginning, so they built a hale just for that. They called it a jam house, and I'm hesitant to support that because I'll go back to the original intention of the festival was to ho'onui the traditional arts, because those are the ones that they were afraid of losing to the next generation because they're not interested. So in the beginning, it was give them what we want them to have, what we want to not die. And now the festival has started leaning more towards give them what they want so that they attend. And the Jam House can become the largest performance area, and then the more traditional areas can be more neglected or visited by older people, and the younger people can all flock to the jam session because that's where the contemporary music is and where there's interaction, you know, where people can come together and, you know, just like have a party kind of. And I'm more worried about this in Hawaii than I would be going to New Caledonia, you know, or going to other countries to do this, just because Hawaii, we've got such mixed cultures here already. And so I fear what's going to happen is that if we have this jam house or jam session area, that the countries are going to come and it's going to be all, it's kind of turned into mostly reggae stuff and Bob Marley stuff, because that's what a lot of the countries, the people of the Kanaka Oiwi of the different countries are. That's like their contemporary native sound and feel. And so if that's what we want, then that's what we're going to get. But if we want it to be more like what you said, Monty, yeah, cultural exchange, you know, we sing a Hawaiian song, you sing a Maori song, like you know, when Randy takes you guys down to New Zealand, right? And yeah, that's what we want it to be. But will it be that? And I don't know that we would be able to control it, which is I think where you're coming from, Kalani, is that maybe if we give it more description and more let the countries know what it is we want more specifically, then maybe we'll get more of that cultural exchange rather than just a open mic. That's just what I'm thinking.
Thank you. And maybe I could ask it in a different way. We've been on this topic of programming for a while now. We have 26 sort of subcategories. We've divided it up into a larger set of 6 broader categories. And I guess for purposes of keeping the momentum that we've had in planning, are we ready to move forward with either the top 6 big buckets, which include performing arts, media arts, and Commissioner Bento had a note in the Excel sheet about whether or not we wanted to use media arts or do we do mixed media, etc. So that's still a little bit of an open end to me. We have Olelo sort of out on its own. Maybe that's for highlighting its importance. Living arts, health and wellness, and special events. And so I'm just curious your thoughts, because I think at some point we're going to have to lock these in. We won't have the details, but at least at broad strokes, we need this to move forward with our planning. So I'm just kind of curious what your folks' thoughts are.
So you're asking about the categories, Kalani?
Yeah, so there's
categories,
the 6 at the top, right? Performing, media, Olelo, living, health and wellness, special. There's those big buckets. And then below that, we have the 26 individual sort of categories, for lack of a better term, or I don't know what to call them, but
and were you guys working on descriptions of each of those categories, individual categories?
We have been, yep. And so that's my question.
What are you asking? Yeah.
Are we okay voting on the 26 categories and just saying that these are pa'a? These are the 26 that we're going to offer, and then we can work toward bringing greater definition as we move forward. Or should we do it the other way? Should we finalize the description to go with each of the 26 before voting to move forward with the 26?
I would vote that way. I think I don't want to vote just for a name. I want to know what it is that all of us are thinking that category is going to incorporate.
I have a question regarding Olelo. Is that normally how it's housed, that is it has its own bucket? Olelo or indigenous? I just wonder, so a dramatic play that's written in an indigenous language would fall under just, I'm just wondering because it seems to be in all the categories, the Olelo section. So do we want it to be a separate bucket or I don't know. That
No,
seems a
that's a
little
really
bit
good
ambiguous.
question. No, and I think that that's what I was trying to get at, right? Like, so that kind of defining is what I think is still left to be done, right? And that's where I'm hesitant to sort of move forward until we have a little bit more clarity, because you're absolutely right. Because indigenous language is going to show up in traditional dance, for example. It could come up in choral singing. It could come up in drama and theater. It could come up in film. It could come up in a really contemporary, like pottery or painting or, you know, those sorts of things. So, and that's why, like, I think the definition for, say, for indigenous languages, I thought when we were discussing this a few months ago that the intentionality that we had was to bring and raise awareness around Hawaiian language revitalization and what that means for other indigenous languages across Moana Nui Akea. So with that understanding, I think this was more along those lines as opposed to just anything that featured an indigenous language.
Right. I agree, Kalani. I think that's where we're going. Where we want to focus. I think we want a language Olelo to be its separate category, um, because like you said, to show the importance, but that doesn't take it out of the other categories. Really, Olelo Hawaii is at the top of all categories. We want it incorporated in every category, but by singling it out as its own section, it gives us a platform for sharing all of the work that all of our people have been doing in regards to not just the work that Auntie Kauidem are doing, with Mo'olelo and the newspapers, but in the area of law. There's a lot more documents books being written, position papers. There's so many more of our people that can read and understand our Olelo across all all areas of intellect, and that if it's important for us, then we should feature it, because that is one of the huge keys for our nation going forward. And it also gives us an opportunity to really present our Olelo as that's really what's bringing us, what is bringing our Lahui back together again. And all of the other countries have been colonialized as well. But most of them still retain their languages, although it's a struggle for them. If you listen in on CPAC meetings, all of the countries are struggling with their young people understand their language, but they primarily speak English. And so it's a way to bring that awareness about that, for them to, that we don't want the other countries to get into the situation where we are, where we have to go back now and teach our young ones Hawaiian because none of us grew up with it, So I think it gives us a platform for doing that. And this is our festival, so we can tweak it any way we want. We don't have to follow what any other festival before did. We can add and delete categories and activities and events as we wish. And the last comment I want to make, Chair, is that even though you guys and Snow are doing really great work on all of this, I'm not comfortable voting on this without Snowbird in attendance. Even if we're like at the point where we agree we're moving on it. I'm just not comfortable with that personally. Thank you.
No, thank you, Commissioner De Silva. Any other members have thoughts? Can I ask maybe, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, I definitely support that Mana'o, that Olelo should be front and center. I almost feel like it's the thing that like the programming goes there, but Olelo, it's like a specific designation per, you know what I mean? Like it's a highlight per category under performing arts, things that are 50% or more in the language. You know, how do we highlight it? So that it's sort of made blatant that this is going to be a language focused activity or something that is going to engage Indigenous language directly. But sorry, I just have one more question, because in performing art, it seems like traditional and what is contemporary is under the same sort of overarching category. But for media arts is very contemporary, then living arts is very traditional, but
Yeah.
it seems like it would all come under visual arts. So I'm just wondering, do we want to then go performing arts, do the same thing with the way that visual arts are separated? I don't know, but it just, yeah.
No, that's a good observation, right? So carving, kappa, weaving, all of that stuff could be the traditional media or medium for those arts, right? And then more traditional, or excuse me, more modern versions are things like film, photography, canvas, you know, painting, that kind of stuff. So I'm getting the sense that we're not necessarily ready today to vote on these things for a bunch of different reasons. I am curious what your thoughts are, because I think it's important for us at a commission level to get to the 30,000 foot level and say, do these 26 categories help us achieve the mission and vision that we set for the festival? And I think they do, but I'm just curious what your folks' thoughts are on how you see these categories aligning behind that mission and vision. Is there anything that we're missing that sort of sticks out like a red flag? Like, how did we not include this practice? And then I think the other element to that is, what about this is Hawaii? What about this? What are we sharing? Oh, thanks. You know, what about these categories is unique to Hawaii that we want to highlight? Because also at the end of the day, this is our opportunity, and our first and probably only for a long time, to expose the delegates from other countries to our Hawaiian culture. And so are there categories that do that, that we should call out specifically too?
Well, I think it definitely fulfills the vision and the mission. I think we have enough in terms of the categories and the broadness and the spectrum of it. So I do think we're going to cover everything. In terms of your question about pulling out, I don't know, to be honest. To me, I want to go to see everything. I want to, do everything.
No, thank you. I guess my thought is, right, Hawaiian culture will be present everywhere throughout this, but is there something that is unique to us, that we should be calling out that isn't maybe as prevalent in other places, or, you know, different things like that? It's just an opportunity for us to reflect, since we're not going to vote today. Commissioner De Silva.
I mentioned before our feather work. I think our feather work is very unique to the Pacific and more extensive than most countries. And we had talked about that before, but I don't see it singled out anywhere.
That is a very good point, because I thought we sort of recognized adding hulu to this, and I don't see it.
As a living art. I thought it was supposed to come under living arts.
Thank you.
Along with that are, kahili and all of that kind of stuff.
Right. So to our note takers today and minute takers, can we make sure that that gets back to Commissioner Bento to add in? Because I thought we had already sort of discussed having hulu added as a category. Is my recollection correct?
I thought we did.
Okay, I thought so too.
Yep, I'll make sure. Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody have any other thoughts,
there-
questions?
Is there any interest in somehow giving a little more exposure to our ohana ni'ihau and the shell work that they do?
Hmm.
I don't know if that's something we want to consider.
That would be really neat, because when I think about our like the Micronesian countries, right, they do a lot of poo-poo work as well. Would be really interesting to see them interact and their practices too. I don't know, how do you folks feel?
I agree. Definitely.
Okay, so far adding under living arts, hulu and then poo-poo, for lack of a better term. Anything else?
Kalani, the other thing that comes to mind is Uncle Babe and the work that he does. And I don't know if there's a variety enough across the Pacific in ho'okanipu technique that would warrant a separate category. And if most countries they just grab the pu and blow, or is there technique, is there finesse, is there, like, if you listen to Uncle Babe, he has developed certain ways. He actually show you can hear the emotion if he's blowing for a ho'oleva, or for the opening of a ceremony, or the opening of a concert, or um, when if you're in a canoe, that he doesn't just have one way he blows. The sounds are the same, but how he delivers them are very different. And then there are certain kinds of ho'okanipu when you're on the canoe, right? There are certain sounds and tones and leo kind of music that they've developed that Uncle Babe doesn't do that. He does different, and they do. And so, in Hawaii, we have a variety. I don't know if there's enough across the Pacific that it would warrant a small section dedicated to that. Can you imagine Uncle Babe meeting with all these other ho'okanipu across the Pacific? Just crossed my mind.
No, thanks, Auntie. Other commissioners' thoughts?
Yeah, well, I just like to second what Commissioner De Silva just said. Definitely. And I know that even for Aloha festivals, Pro Ridge usually has their Keiki Pool Kani contest. And I know that's, helping to revive that as well. And even at the charter schools and some other schools, I see they have Pool Ohe and all types of different.
So as a proud
Right.
uncle,
Yeah.
my nephew Hulili won one year at Pro Ridge, so yes.
Yeah. And that's true, Monty, not just the pool, but the ohe, and and then we can bring like the whistle in, the oi oi. Yeah, other I don't know, just trying to think of what's really strong in our own culture, you know, that we would want to take the opportunity to share with the other cultures. Because when in the last 4 festivals, Uncle Babe has gone with us, so he's blown the pool, but not been featured. It's been, and because in the Pacific, everybody blows, but mostly you just hear them blow. You don't hear the technique and the expression and all of that. And when we're in other countries, we don't have that opportunity for him to share, or for us to share that part of how he ho'okanipus. Might be something we want to do here. And maybe it's just going to be like a symposium and not be a whole category in itself. I don't know. But that should be something that we consider, I think.
That's what I was thinking about it, more like an instrument. And I don't mean to like be offensive, but in that way, I think of them like instruments, and I would sort of put them under the music category. And then within the individual symposiums, like you're mentioning, we could have this one, right? And I think Maka was messaging me on the side on my chat about like in Aotearoa, where they have that other mouthpiece that they add to their poo. So they're all different kind of stuff that they can get into, and we can totally get into that. So I think those are good. I think of those as sort of within the vertical of a category, as opposed to another category. But I think hulu and poo poo as new categories make sense.
I have a question. I'm not sure if it was voted on and then we decided not to do it, but do we do things that might be considered like war arts or martial arts, like Lua or Maori have their own art of fight. I don't know how we would call it, but that many Polynesian cultures have an art of, I don't know, war or fighting. Is that something that we should include under maybe health and wellness? Because now it's more practiced for health. I don't know.
Sorry, you muted a little early, cut off, but that's something we didn't talk about. I don't ever remember talking about Lua. It's funny you're talking about Lua as a health practice.
Well, now I'm assuming it's more health. People are practicing it, to further culture, but also exercise.
I really like my joints the way they're organized right now at present.
No, that's true though, because the Paglino ones they were practitioners of Lua and Ho'oponopono, and so they found that balance in between. But I agree. I think a lot of people now use it more for self-discipline, and even as a way for health, just to get their activity. And then I guess the other part too is camaraderie or fraternity as well.
Yeah, and all the great work Ahakane is doing, right? It's sort of organized around that in some ways. So my staff is having a field day in the chat. I'm going to quote this because it's that good. Homeland Security.
I love that so much. I almost feel like, because this might be a much smaller sort of segment of the population, kind of like the poo is very specialized. If we had a category for like intercultural encounter or intercultural exchange, where maybe you have the one specialist from Hawaii, but you put together the three and all of a sudden you have a symposium under the category of intercultural exchange or encounter.
Encounter.
Any other thoughts? Because the other sort of larger, yes, it's a practice. Yes, it's part of our culture. But to that point, does it live in health and wellness? Does it live in living arts? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I would want to put it in health and wellness because I would want to, if we're going to include it, to focus on the positive elements of it. And I think I would see it under there rather than, talking about it from the defensive war situation of it. Because that's, the Maori, it's their martial arts, self-defense. It's all incorporated into their hakaya, into their music and dance there. But I would want, if we're going to include it, I think that's under health and wellness makes sense to me.
Do we call it Lua? Do we call it martial art? Like, is it a martial? I don't know. I don't.
Right. So I guess at what point does the dialogue with the practitioners, like the Halimua or whoever, they might have strong feelings about where they should be put it. And maybe you've broached this in other discussions about this because it's my first time, but I understand that this is sort of a draft, right? But at some point, the level of engagement and bandwidth will somewhat dictate. So I don't think we need to maybe have an extended debate over where they belong. But those guys gonna go, we should be in this one, right? But I agree, it's a good idea.
Thank you, Commissioner. Senator, I don't know what to call you. Senator Commissioner.
Please, not that. Yeah.
Okay. And I think just to that point, this is the framework, right? So this is the starting point. Once we sort of get this, then what's supposed to happen is we start to build out those subcommittees of the people that are actually going to do the work and help us organize the sessions. Those are the practitioners. Those are people in these communities that do this stuff.
Kalani?
Yes.
Chair? On the agenda under Festival Program Matrix, it says descriptions of program offerings. But did we get those descriptions?
We started and they're still getting massaged. And I think
Okay.
after today, we're gonna have to go back to them a little bit.
Okay. I was just curious. Where it said descriptions, I was wondering if we were supposed to get them or were we talking about them?
Yeah,
Or-
Ilya, can you pull them up? These are from the past meetings and it was sort of in that slide format, Auntie, with the columns. And then we wrote in underneath and there were some that still had
Right.
puka, like voyaging, I
Right.
think, the last time we saw it. So that's what this was referring to, were those descriptions. And then I think Commissioner Bento and others sort of massaged it into a Word doc as well. So Ilya, if you have either of those or if anybody on staff has those, if we can maybe just
I
pull
have
those
the
up.
doc here.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Just so we can show folks and then we can go back. So this is what I think needs more massaging.
So you can see there's some back and forth, still getting low need here, but adding in the comments from today.
And then I know we can't make the live document available to commissioners to work in real time, but can we maybe put it out as a PDF in its current draft form and distribute that after the meeting today so that at least the commissioners have a point in time reference of what the descriptions look like for right now?
You know.
Thank you. Okay. Any other thoughts on program descriptions and the program offerings? On the matrix itself?
But I'm glad that that Kumu remembered Hulu and they poo.
Yeah, that's big pukas.
Yeah.
Especially we have Kahili at the like opening. And then what? Oh, we don't have a session for it? Okay. I'd like to move on to agenda item number 5 if there are no further comments on the programs, matrix and descriptions. One of the things that we weren't able to get to were the template for the venues to do. So Ilya sent me a draft today that I'm still going over, and I'll make some edits to it first, but the next step for this would be distributing the template to you all for your comments and feedback before we sort of put it into use. That will mean that our venues discussion that we had intended for the quarterly meeting at the end of the month will probably have to get pushed back as well. Anything else I'm forgetting on the venues?
No.
Okay. It's really thorough. Ilya, I don't know, can you pull it up and share it on screen?
No, just a sec.
Thanks. Sorry guys, my dog is doing like zoomies around the room right now, acting like a crazy person before he gets his dinner at 4 o'clock. So if you hear noise, that's what it is. Perfect. Thanks, Ilya. So if we can scroll down a little bit, it's pretty robust. It covers everything from like security lockdowns and close proximity to hospitals and VIP holding rooms. It's pretty intensive. Ilya, do you want to review it with us?
Hey, so starting from the top, just the venue name, and one point of feedback I got from the team was that it would be good to specify that this is per room. For example, this wouldn't be one sheet for the Blaisdell. It would be one for the exhibit hall, one for the concert hall, a Pelaku, just so we understand the capacities. Looking at maximum capacities, overflow options, whether that's a big screen someplace else or Kiahala. Type of venue, indoor, open air, air conditioning. What's the rain plan if it is an outdoor venue? We want to understand the electrical capacity for those bigger stage setups. What kind of internet bandwidth? Because we understand that this may be a very tech-heavy festival, more so than previous festivals, and then Wi-Fi availability. Cell reception. I know I've gotten surprised at venues where I thought, I could pull them up on my iPad, and then aliki. Access and accessibility, because we'll have sort of high-level VIPs from some of the delegations. We want to understand how secure the entrances are. From an open air thing in a park to something like the convention center where you can pull a motorcade inside, offload in a secure space. For safety and security, we want to know, police jurisdiction. Is it sheriff's? Is it HPD? Same with fire, medical, nearest hospital, presuming that some delegations may want to know that, proximity of things. Can the venue be locked and secured overnight if it's something like, for example, the carving where things will stay, or any sort of marketplace type of venue? Understanding the assets at the venue, whether it's built-in seating or they have seating, or we got to bring our own chairs, coolers, whatever. Same with lighting, sound, projection. If the venue has any kind of preferred vendors that they work with regularly, understanding that. Are there any restrictions? Events can only run until a certain time or cannot begin earlier than a certain time. Sound restrictions for amplified things. Any cultural restrictions? Perhaps there's a part of the venue we wouldn't want to use for whatever reason, or areas to avoid. Any kind of miscellaneous restrictions. I didn't spell it out yet, but things like, for example, some places you cannot fly drones, but that would be a very interesting, perspective on an event, but certain places no can. Proximity to airports or whatever.
Like Ke'ehi Lagoon for the Va'a welcoming ceremony.
That is a prime example, yes. So things like that.
And also permits. Can we add permits? I didn't see permits.
Yep, absolutely.
It just came to me. Sorry. So if anybody sees something, flag it now while we're all together in this time. But permits is a big one.
Reservations, estimated cost, deposit requirements, things like that. Any insurance requirements. So anybody see any pukas that they would like to point out at this time?
And another good example is like film permits. So when we want to do the opening ceremony at Iolani Palace, because it's technically a state park, Donnie has to issue us a film permit. And then because it's still in the zone for the airport, you also have to get an exemption to fly a drone at Iolani Palace. And the venues know these things, so I think a form like this that helps us catch that is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it looks good and covers everything.
Auntie, as a seasoned head of delegation, is there anything that you would be left wanting for as a head of delegation?
No, well, it looks very extensive. Looks like they thought of anything. I can't think of anything
Does
that you
it
didn't include
specify
already.
does it specify restrooms anywhere? Number of restrooms available? It does? Okay, good. Perfect.
And one thing we don't ask for is a floor plan, and that might be helpful to understand where those restrooms are located.
That's a good one. I don't know who brought up the union, non-union labor. That's a really important one. When you think about a venue like the Shell that we had previously considered, it's a union shop.
Or at hotels or other places like that. This actually was called from, I spent some time with a friend who worked on the advance team for a couple of presidential campaigns. And so a lot of this is called from their experiences, moving around really quickly, not having a lot of lead time. What do we need to know? So mahalo to them.
Can
Can
you
you scroll
also,
up again, please?
yeah.
Sorry.
Can you add
Sure.
restrictions too to are there grounds restrictions? Because a lot of the grounds you can't nail anything into the ground, so we can't make tents there.
Good one.
If we're
Namely
using
the city.
buildings, yeah, namely the city. But if we're using anything that's like a historic building, we can't attach anything, like we can't touch anything. That would be good just to have up front, lest we forget and have to build a tent and we can't.
Right.
Or to build a hale.
So I was going to ask about accessibility, options or constraints associated with layout. And then
Sure.
to that end, I'm wondering if some of these facilities offer media options or if they have some sort of standard, right? Because if we are going to plan to stream this, then there are going to be accessibility concerns there as well that tie kind of into some of the like internet bandwidth, some of these other things.
Yeah, that's a good one, Senator, because like at the convention center, there's a room specifically built out for the output stream to media, right? That want to upload huge files to their, whatever news agency they want to do it in, really high 4K format. So some of the venues will have that.
Yeah, and then streaming capability in the panel rooms, right, is indoor versus outdoor. All of that stuff is significant.
Mahalo.
Commissioner Lum?
Also under accessibility, is there anything in terms of accessibility to the public for those that might have physical disabilities? I mean, I know most places need to have that, but if that's something we just want to make sure we also have in there.
Sure. Anybody else? This is great feedback, you guys. Mahalo.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing none, we good? Okay, thanks, Ilihia. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and clean that up and we'll send the revised document out to you folks for a once over. So have some time with it, marinate on it. If something else comes up, can go ahead and respond to Ilihia or Malia directly with feedback for that. Make sure you don't copy all of us for Sunshine stuff. So just responding directly to staff. And then we'll go ahead and start using the clean version after that's done. So maybe we can shoot for that for the next meeting. that the clean and finished one is ready to go for next meeting. Okay. Agenda item 6 was legislation. Senate Bill 696 in its amended form has made its way to the House. So hulu for that, mahalo, Senator, and all those involved in shepherding that along. You know, we've provided testimony as a commission as well. Commissioners like Commissioner McCumber have testified as an individual to keep that moving. There were some amendments that are related to sunshine that were shared by the Office of Information Practices that were amended and put into the bill, which we're amenable to. So we've been in touch with the House side. I think Jimmy was on this call a few meetings ago when the House version was going through, and so sort of raised it to them that it's come back over for them to take up with, I believe, Chair Gates. But it hasn't been referred, but we'll keep our eyes out on the bill. Anybody have any questions on that?
Kalani, I just wanted, this is Margaret, I just wanted to point out that, you know, OIP had actually submitted additional amendments, and you had gone on, you know, you had gone along with those amendments, which did not make it into the bill. So
Yes.
There is still some work to be done, and hopefully that those will be taken up by the next committee.
Yes. Thanks, Margaret. Anything else on agenda item number 6? Alrighty. That brings us to number 7, our second round of public comments. So to the public on the call, thanks for always joining us. We see you guys. I see June today is back. Hi, June, and Lynn, and a few other regular faces or names that we usually see on the call. But if anybody has any testimony that they'd like to offer, the floor is yours. Go ahead and unmute and turn on your camera. Okay, going once, twice, 3 times, hearing and seeing none. I'm going to move on to our next meeting date, which is March 22nd, same time, same place. I don't have anything else. I do want to turn the floor over to Commissioner McCumber for an announcement before we adjourn.
Thank you. The announcement is very quick, that I submitted my letter of resignation to both Governor and Chair Ka'ana'ana as commissioner effective April. So as of April, I won't be a commissioner, although I'm still happy to carry on and kokua with the kuleana and even some of the specific assignments that I've been given. So really it's up to the commission and chair. But in that sense too, I think my departure opens up some really great possibilities for other important organizations to be included on the commission. So looking forward to that. And that's all for me.
Well, on behalf of the commissioners, and I'll turn the floor over to them after this, but Monty, really, mahalo nui. From day one, you've been stellar and following up, whether it was following up to the penny on financial reports or whether it was reporting out from various CPAC meetings. Your work's always been super mael and can't thank you enough for that, and look forward to more close collaboration with you in the future. Commissioners, anything else?
I just want to say, Monty, I'm going to really miss you. I've enjoyed this time together, and I've leaned on you many times. And just to let you know that you might not be a commissioner, but we're still going to call on you, and I hope that you can be right there with us through this entire process until the last report has been submitted.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Love your work and hope to continue working with you. Mahalo.
Might have to make a commissioner emeritus position. Anyone else? I think we
just want
can
to add my
yeah.
mahalo to Monty as well. We had a chance to work together when we were looking at when he was helping us track all the financial information, and just always really enjoyed working with you, Monty, and just mahalo for your support. And yeah, you're not really getting away scot-free. We will continue to look to you for your advice and for your expertise. Mahalo.
Yeah, thank you to all of you. Mahalo.
Thank you, commissioners. Okay, if there's nothing else, we're going to go ahead and entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting today.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner McCumber. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Salah. All in favor, can we just do it by unanimous consent?
Aye.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Aye.
We'll see you guys next meeting. Be well. Don't forget, wash your hands, stay away, and wear your mask. We're not out of this yet.
Bye,
Okay.
Monty.
Hello, everyone.